Russian forces have also attacked Europe's biggest nuclear power plant in southeastern Ukraine, triggering fears of a potential radiation leak. The fighting got intense overnight, and a fire even broke out at the facility. But the International Atomic Energy Agency says a Russian projectile hit a training center at the plant. It was not part of the reactor, and no radiation was released. Still, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is now accusing the Russians of trying to create another Chernobyl nuclear disaster and says they must be stopped immediately. Our senior foreign correspondent Ian Pannell starts us off from Kyiv.
This morning, more civilian infrastructure hit as videos circulating online show the devastation, including a school in Zhytomyr, west of Kyiv, destroyed. This is just the latest escalation as Russia ramps up its war machine, increasingly bombing indiscriminately. There now seems to be almost total disregard for civilians caught in the middle. Just 90 miles north of Kyiv, in the city of Chernihiv, dashcam video capturing the moment a missile strike hits a residential neighborhood. City emergency services saying 47 people were killed, 18 wounded. If confirmed, it would be the deadliest single attack on civilians since the invasion began. And overnight, pitched battles at Europe's largest nuclear power plant. In a highly dangerous development, Russian troops shelling the site with tracer fire lighting up the sky, the plant streaming the attacks online. This morning, the nuclear facility now in the hands of the Russians, and the nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, saying none of the facility's essential equipment has been damaged, a fire in the building has been extinguished. Western regulators say they've seen no change in radiation levels. And in the southern part of the country, the Russians seizing Kherson, the first major city to fall into their hands. And with troops bearing down on Mykolaiv and the Navy approaching Odessa, it appears they're trying to cut Ukraine off from the Black Sea coast. And as the Russian forces approach the capital, the people of Kyiv ready to put up a fight. President Zelensky speaking with reporters in a secret location inside the capital.
But how long can you hang on?
He told me, I don't know how long. It doesn't depend on time. It depends on us. A senior US official saying they believe Putin intends to crush Kyiv, already having selected and prepared a puppet government to replace Zelensky. Diane, Vladimir Putin speaking with Emmanuel Macron of France overnight. The Élysée Palace telling ABC News that they fear that the worst is yet to come. And I think that reflects the mood in the city and the country as Russia changes its tactics to more indiscriminate bombing, trying to drive civilians from their homes. Diane?
All right, Ian Pannell, thanks for that. And let's bring in senior investigative reporter Aaron Katersky in Ukraine, along with ABC News Deputy Political Director Avery Harper for more on this. Aaron, this is the first time a war has been fought around an active nuclear power plant. So what's the biggest concern here?
Well, the concern, as President Zelensky put it, is another Chernobyl, but 6 times greater, because there are 6 reactors at what is Europe's largest nuclear power plant. Even to just contemplate the idea of a war being fought around a nuclear power station is mind-boggling, and it raised alarms around the world. President Zelensky was on the phone with President Biden and other world leaders who were demanding updates. Finally, the International Atomic Energy Agency said the fire that had broken out in a dormitory from all the shelling and gunfire did not impact the reactors and did not cause a radiation leak or higher levels of radiation. But the very prospect of fighting around a nuclear power station raised a lot of concern about the lengths the Russians are willing to go to subjugate this country and what tactics they may employ next.
Now, Avery, the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv is also speaking out on Twitter saying it's a war crime to attack a nuclear power plant and that Putin's shelling of Europe's largest nuclear plant takes his reign of terror one step further. So does that increase pressure on the Biden administration to respond?
Of course it does. I think when you have Americans who are waking up to headlines that include a nuclear power plant, and we're seeing these images come out of Ukraine, there is, of course, going to be calls for the Biden administration to take further action. And we've seen those calls from both sides of the aisle in terms of asking for even more sanctions. Yesterday, we saw Republicans and Democrats alike calling for a ban of Russian oil imports to the United States. And so I think this is a conversation that we're going to continue to be having about what can be done to stop Putin as these actions continue in Ukraine.
Aaron, Russian forces appear to be gaining more ground in southern Ukraine. What's the latest on the fighting there?
The Russians have already taken Kherson, the first major city to fall out of Ukrainian control and into the hands of the Russians. They seem to be laying siege to Mariupol, another key port city. And they've been making gains on Mykolaiv, another strategic city on the sea coast. And Russian naval ships have been spotted in the Black Sea menacing Odessa, the historic port. That entire swath, if the Russians take it, that does two things. It cuts off Ukraine's access to the Black Sea. That's an economic stranglehold. But it also gives the Russians a foothold to bring their forces from the south up north, following the river up into Kyiv. That would take a long time, but it's dawning on Western defense officials that maybe Vladimir Putin is in this for a long and brutal haul.
Avery, the U.S. has granted temporary protected status to Ukrainians living in the U.S. How significant is that? And what does it mean for the hundreds of thousands of refugees fleeing Ukraine right now?
Right. Well, temporary protected status is a humanitarian program that allows and extends immigration relief to foreign nationals who are from countries that the Department of Homeland Security has deemed appropriate because of things like war or natural disasters. And back in 2010, Haitians were granted temporary protected status. And what that really allows is for these Ukrainian refugees to come to the United States and to live and work here legally for as long as the Department of Homeland Security deems appropriate. So this could be this is a real olive branch to those refugees who are fleeing the country, the war-torn nation, as we see Russia continue to take those actions against Ukraine.
And Aaron, a senior U.S. official says Russia has selected and prepared a puppet government to install once its forces seize the Ukrainian capital. Now, we've heard before the thoughts that this was the end game, but this is the first time we're hearing of the specifics of this plan.
And that's what is motivating, I think, the determination of people here to pick up arms and join the resistance. They do not want to live back under the thumb of the Russians or some Putin puppet, whether it's Yanukovych, who was in power previously, or someone else. And I saw again today evidence of that sort of civilian mobilization. We were out at an old factory that reminded me of being somewhere in Industry City in Brooklyn or something like that, a real hipster haven of coffee roasting and beer brewing and a nightclub. And in one part, they were making meals for migrants, 800 of them a day. In another part, they were learning to make tourniquets and other medical supplies. And in a back corner of a spot that used to be part of a nightclub, there were men and women who not 2 weeks ago were baristas and bartenders learning to assemble rifles.
And Avery, you mentioned both parties are calling for more response. The U.S. did level new sanctions against Russian oligarchs today. But from a general take, are both parties on board with the U.S. response so far?
I think both parties are on board with the sanctions that we've levied. I think that there's some folks who believe that more can be done, especially if you look at things like Russian oil imports. But if you look at the overall response, I think that the White House has tried to levy sanctions that are going to hit Russians, and particularly those close to Putin, in their pockets, blocking them from, moving financial assets, blocking them from the money in order to try and slow the pace of what's going on in Ukraine. But the issue so far has been that these sanctions have not yet done that. I think that the White House has said, and President Biden has said, that this will take time. But as we continue to see those those actions happen over in Ukraine, and all this, the violent images that we see, we don't know what's going to stop them at this point.
All right, Aaron Katersky, Avery Harper, thank you both.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.